Okay, give me the next one. Okay, does anybody, this is NVIDIA. You know NVIDIA? If you have a graphics card in your computer, almost guaranteed, they have like 80% of the chips that go into your graphics card. Now, you sit back and you say, today, you know, they have 80% of the market, they got the best technology, the fastest processors, the best cost position, the best volume, they are the clear winner. Okay, do you know what their strategy was? In fact, this isn't good strategy, bad strategy. This is an example from their book. Here's what they figured out, okay? And this is a problem that exists in a lot of our businesses. In the computer business, you know, you launch your new product, you have the best technology, and that leadership lasts for 4 or 5 months. And then the next guy launches his product, he has the best technology, and then he gets the share. And then the next competitor launches. Sound familiar, right? Happens to all of our businesses that are sort of on the leading edge of technology. So what was NVIDIA's strategy? NVIDIA's strategy was not to try to make the best computer, to have the best cost position. That was not the strategy. The strategy was to have the newest product in the market most of the time. So what they did is they launched 3 development teams, totally separate, right? So they would try to launch a product every 6 months. One development team would launch every 18 months. They put 3 in place, unrelated to each other. They were launching every 6 months. In the end, they had product leadership 80% of the time instead of 30 or 25% of the time. And that outcome gave them the volume, and in the end gave them the position where they had the product leadership, the technology leadership, the volume leadership, and the cost position. But it wasn't a strategy based upon technology. It was a strategy about being in the marketplace sooner and more often than the competitors. And so it was a risk, right? They took a risk. But it had a great outcome for them. But it wasn't about technology. It was about understanding how their market worked and how they wanted to position the business in that market. All right, go to the next one. All right, I love this one. Okay. I love this one. So Sam, you all know the story, right? Sam Walton, he starts building stores in small communities. You know, my suspicion is that Sam Walton, when he started, didn't actually recognize that he could aggregate all these small stores and get the same efficiency as a big store supply chain solution. Okay? Actually, that's not why I have this in here. I have this in here for this example. A Harvard professor talks about services, gave me this example. Pretend for a second you are a manager in Walmart, and you're sitting in Bentonville, Arkansas at corporate headquarters. And you get a letter. And the letter says, I went to store X and I couldn't find anybody to help me. Okay? I waited 45 minutes. I looked, couldn't find anybody who can answer any of my questions. I left that store and I will never be back. Okay? You get the letter. What do? Do you send a letter to the store manager and say, don't let this happen again? Or do you send a letter to the store manager and say, congratulations on executing my low-cost strategy? It's the latter, right? Because strategy is not only about what you do, it is also about what you do not do. It's very important to understand what you do not do in strategy. It's as important as understanding what you do. Because what you don't do is if you go and start responding as Walmart to that complaint, you're no longer low cost, right? You're adding service people. Okay? Think about that. It's what you don't do. Walmart will say, congratulations. It's not what everybody thinks. Okay, go to the next one. All right. This is my personal, this is, in 2001, GE was trying to buy Honeywell, and I was the integration leader for the Honeywell industrial business. Okay. So I'm with one of Honeywell's customers. Happened to be one of the major oil companies, vice president in charge of refinery operations for the United States. Honeywell is quoting on a huge job at a refinery. And the VP says to me, he says, Emerson is the competition. They have a better product. We like the product better. They're lower price. They can deliver earlier because Honeywell was still developing the product. So if they used Honeywell, they would have to install in 2 outages instead of 1. And then he said, I'm giving the order to Honeywell anyway. Okay? I'm giving the order to Honeywell anyway. Now, to all the engineers, you'll never figure this out. Right? It violates everything you think. The guy's got a better product, he's got a better price, he's got better delivery, and he loses the job. So what was going on? So here's what was going on. Honeywell had a strategy, and they called the strategy customer centricity. Okay. So here's what they would do. They figured out that there were some customers that really cared about their vendor and how the product evolved, the products they were using. So they built the company around this customer centricity idea. So I'll give you some examples on how it worked. So if you were a vice president at Honeywell and you were assigned to Exxon, your job was to know the C-suite at Exxon. If you changed job in Honeywell, you still owned Exxon. You didn't change. You had Exxon as your customer C-suite responsibility for your entire career at Honeywell. That was your job. After 15 years, you know everybody in the C-suite at Honeywell or at Exxon. Everybody at BP, everyone at Chevron, right? Because that's the strategy they're executing. At the refineries, they have people at every level of the refinery operations tied into somebody at Honeywell. Okay? They wrote contracts with these customers. So Exxon had a contract with Honeywell, and the contract said a certain percentage of what Exxon bought would be devoted to new product development that Exxon could direct. Okay? So you'd go to the engineering part of Honeywell, and there'd be Honeywell engineers writing the product specs for the next product, and right next to them will be an Exxon engineer. Okay? When customers would come, and I saw this, VP from Exxon comes, Honeywell sets up in the middle of the building a podium, this big atrium. Everybody in the building stops work and comes and listens to the customer speak. Everybody stops work. The engineers, the secretaries, contract administration, finance, they all come and they all listen to what the customers had to say. Exxon had a lot of compliments, and Exxon had a lot of criticisms, and they all got the feedback directly from the customer. All right? The strategy changed how Honeywell worked, right? It changed how they treated their customers. It changed how they laid out the offices for engineering, right? It changed how they allocated space. They had to have space in their building for their customer engineers. In the end, what the VP for the refinery operation said, we are so tied to Honeywell, from the plant operator to the technician maintaining the stuff, to the engineering function, all the way up to the corporate offices, that I don't really have a choice but to give the job to Honeywell. Okay? It was a strategy built upon a customer relationship strategy. It wasn't a strategy built on technology or pricing. Okay? It was a strategy built on customer relations. So, I'm an engineer. No? This was a revelation to me, right? that you can have a strategy where the customer picks you in spite of your product, your price, and your delivery. Okay? All right, go to the next one. All right, so that's all my examples. Let me talk for a second about picking strategies that are sustainable. Now, sustainability has a couple different views to it. When you pick a strat, let's say I used the example of building a having a low-cost strategy, that being your strategy, and one of the tactics being building a factory in China. If low cost is your strategy, building the China factory is a tactic. But to execute your strategy, you probably have to follow low cost as it moves around the world. So your next factory is probably going to Vietnam, right? So if you to execute your strategy, if you think you build your factory in China, you're done, you're wrong, right? You have to build a strategy and build this behind that strategy an execution arm that will deliver that strategy time and time again, right? That you can't stop. You have to build, if the factory supply chain guys have to, you have to go tell them, hey, you're going to build a factory in China, but when the cost center moves to Vietnam, you're going to Vietnam, right? You have to be able to execute that. So that's the first part about sustainability. The second part is, can anybody copy it? Because one of the questions we're always asking now about strategy is, if your competitor can just go copy it, it doesn't give you any differentiable position going forward into the future, is it a good enough strategy? Okay? It's not sustainable because somebody will come and copy it that's lower cost, faster. Koreans will come, the Chinese will come, everybody comes, copies your strategy. If it doesn't give you an advantage, it's not a good strategy. So go to the next one. All right. I think I'm right on time. So I thought I'd go through just a few of the things that we do to tools that we have to think about strategy and where you go and how you position. Now the reality is in GE Energy, we actually have a handbook on strategy. It's 99 pages long, okay, with examples from all the different businesses on how to use the tools and what we think is good practices. And so we have a book that's 99 pages. So I'm just going to share with you just a few of those just to show you the kind of homework that you have to do to understand the market and then to understand maybe how to go about building a strategy. So this is a value chain, and this is the value chain for our PV business. Okay. And we're here, this technology provider, and we were building cells and panels and racks, inverters, and the connections to the grid. So we're doing it this chain. Okay. So what happens in this market is this. The Chinese come, and they come here. They flood the market with low-cost modules. Okay. So our response is, we look at the Chinese, we say, we're not competing here. We sell that business to somebody else. We sold our module business. Now we're building a new factory. We're spending $400 million to go back into this with a different technology. But our initial response was to sell that product line, just to sell the business. Now, what happened with all these other people who that's their main business, they all looked at this value chain, and if you go look at that value chain, what you figure out is that all the money is made right here in project development. Because what happens is the project developer, he develops the project and he commoditizes everything he can, right? So cell prices are crashing down at an unbelievable rate, and every time it goes down, it's not that the price of solar in the market goes down. That's not what happens. It's that the developer, the project developer, makes more money. Okay? The price of solar didn't go down. The project developers made more money. So every big cell manufacturer starts buying all the project developers around the world. It's defense. You can watch it in real time happen. Okay? I've watched this now for 2 years. I saw the Chinese come, we sold our business. Every big solar company in the world bought the project developers they could. They tried to buy their backlog. And everybody, all the project developers made money. All the cell manufacturers lost money. Everyone in the world but one. Every single one in the world but one. Okay? The profit pool for cells in the world is negative. It's not zero, it's negative. Okay? So you can actually use this tool to watch the industry change in real time. It's a great tool. So give me that. All right, here's two others that we build for every business. So we want to know, we spend a huge amount of time worrying about competitors. I mean, it's a big focus, and it gets bigger every year. We're trying to understand what every competitor is doing, where they're investing, what they're developing next, what their strategy is, what their policy positions are. We spend a lot of time trying to understand the competitors. And one of the things we do is we build these maps that show for every product who has what part of every market. Okay? To see where they're strong, to understand where we're strong, to understand where they might be vulnerable, and to understand where we might be vulnerable. And then we build this. Where's the money? Okay? For every product, how much margin is there in that product in the world, in that whole pool? Both how many dollars and what's the rate? Okay? Because for a company like GE, we have to worry about rate, about margin rate, because we want big returns. So we build this and this for every business in the portfolio. All 100 businesses have it. Okay? You go to the next one.